Welcome back to Val Verde Broadcasting. My name is Duncan Casey. This is Richard Jackson. You can't see, but I'm pointing at him. He's over there.
Hi.
And we love you, Richard. If I sound a bit clipped and concise and low energy, it's because we got about, 20 minutes into the film and I realised that my audio was not recording correctly, but it is now. So you should hear me coming through like honey poured through a badger's testicle into your ear and out your bum. Yes, that's silky. Anyway, this is if you've never been here before, if you have, then welcome back. This is where we do a commentary to the film, and maybe if you're here for the first time, it's because you've exhausted everything Star Wars on the internet. And if that's you, if that is who you are, I implore you, don't expect a lot of tech stuff in this, or Star Wars geekery. But we're just going to talk about this film as fans, as people who kind of watched this in the 90s or whatever. Sorry, Richard, to have just rambled that off.
That's all right.
But yeah, should we just we'll crack on
we can
discuss the film.
Let's crack on with the Star Wars.
All right. Do you want to do the count-in?
I'll do the count-in.
Very good.
So Star Wars A New Hope, Episode 4, or as it's properly called, Star Wars 1. We're watching the version on Disney+. There have been so many versions of Star Wars. For your FYI, we're watching the one on Disney+. It's probably the most widely available one. Runtimes will differ, blah, blah, blah. So this is that one. So queue up your copy. I'm going to go 3, 2, 1 Star Wars, and we want you to press play. So, Star Wars 1. In 3, 2, 1, Star Wars.
We're Star Warsing all over the place, all over your face, neck and chest.
We've never specifically talked about this film.
We've not, no.
I mean, as a dedicated thing. I did a Star Wars overview with Toby at the very beginning of the channel.
Right.
That was, made a lot of people irrationally angry because people become total psychopaths when you don't fucking hell. If you don't say, well, this is the best film ever created and it causes me to get younger every time I watch it, they act as if you've turned up at their house and stabbed their dog.
Well, we've sort of talked about this before, haven't we? Not just in the previous recording we've had to do it, but also in other places where it's kind of like this really does have its zealots, and it's I think it's a product of. Don't get me wrong. By all accounts, and we weren't around when this first came out, but there was a lot of. I mean, you just have to watch things like E.T. to see the kind of fervor that was about, and how pervasive it was in the popular consciousness. And I'm not sort of denying for a second that this film didn't bring with it its own, mythology and stuff, but it was very self-contained. And I think part of the reason was because things weren't explained, so that's why people went off and it, worked out what the third blinking light on Darth Vader's right bum cheek does. It's like who cares? But that's what everyone kind of...
It's a sitting down indicator. This vehicle is reversing.
I'm turning right. It's like, oh, right, okay.
Beep, beep, beep.
So, it's kind of... I think we're not that kind of fan. We're much more the kind of... the casual fan seems to have been swallowed up by the kind of white dwarf of the ever-expanding nature of this kind of this dying and decaying yet expand. You know what I mean?
Maybe crossing the event horizon of Star Wars fandom, like it's
from whence nothing shall return. It's kind of this, and it becomes like like everything's like how many things have led into this now, like Rogue One and the Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like everything's got to point at this. And it's a bit tedious, and like you very rightly pointed out before, it's the Arthurian legend. It's just told in space. It's Super Mario Brothers. It's all these things. It's save the princess. Defeat the evil wizard or whatever. And there's a mentor and a guide and a call to adventure and all these kind of things. And it's like, and the Empire Strikes Back and Jedi did a great job of kind of bringing more stuff into the story and stretching it out, but that's kind of it, and I think that's why we end up in the reeds with all this sort of trying to crowbar in shit that's just not
your backstory and stuff.
Yeah.
I recently described. When I was talking, I recently spoke to Emily Slade, who's a forthcoming guest on the channel from BBC Radio Norfolk, and she's done some episodes. And I described Star Wars as a swimming pool that I've watched someone piss in, but I'm going to use anyway. You know what I mean? Like, I stood and watched someone have a piss in it, but I still get in and do a few lengths for some reason. It's this strange. I don't know if it's kind of a masochism. What I find, I think we did a live discussion of The Empire Strikes Back, and I think it's really important. Firstly, this is a good movie, and I have no problems with this movie. Nobody's saying that. I think it's really important to separate it from the kind of religious fervour that's been attached to it. I think the popular mythologizing of it, and I think nobody wants to look at Star Wars in context anymore for what it is and was. So at this point in time, Darth Vader is not Leia and Luke's father. These two aren't, ever-present survivors of the Clone War. You know, taken on its own, it's this insane soup of things. Like, it's so many things. It's the Errol Flynn Robin Hood. It's the Devil's Dogs. It's it's got the Eric Korngold music that John Williams is doing. It's Saturday morning serials. It's westerns. It's Arthurian legends. It's space opera. I'm not, it's even Tolkien to an extent. I'm not qualified to tell you everything that went into this. What it is the third film by a director on a wave of kind of UCLA graduates and people like that who were all looking at the 1950s, and they kind of resynthesized that for an audience in the right place at the right time. So this came along, and it's not Kung Fury, right? But Kung Fury was doing the same thing. It was packaging things up for the 80s for millennials. This was taking, essentially baby boomers, this was taking stuff that they enjoyed as children in the 50s and repackaging it as a fun adventure movie for the 1970s. It wasn't supposed to work, but it did. It hit a bunch of notes, and it entertained the grown-ups, and it entertained the kids. Right, it wasn't supposed to work. It's this, but it did, and it's this really wonderful fairy tale in space. Right, it hit all the right notes at the right time. You've got your Black Knight here, you know what I mean? You've got Obi-Wan's fucking Merlin. Like, I even noticed today that I don't know if it's a direct influence, but it was from 1963. But the boy Arthur Pendragon from the Sword and the Stone, the Disney Sword and the Stone, has like Luke's hair, or Luke has his hair. You know, and they have that kind of similar look. It's just this banana soup of things, and it came along just at the right time. And if you look at Lucas's other movies, they're very much in the mold of what was coming for. American Graffiti is specifically about being a kind of hot rod kid in the 50s. THX is quite a dour take on 1984 and dystopian sci-fi, which is way more apt for the 60s, 70s filmmakers, because they'd come out of the Hollywood crash and no one was making stuff like this. It wasn't trendy to make a kind of optimistic fairy tale. Everything was about, Popeye Doyle getting addicted to heroin and the whole 1970s kind of post-crash movement. And this was the birth, along with Jaws and other movies, the birth of the new blockbuster, right? And that's where this fits in. And it was like lightning in a bowl. And as you said, the desire to extract as much nectar from this as possible has led us to learn where C-3PO gets his 10 of men for where he does robot piss, and that's a whole movie. Or what? I don't know. I was reaching with that. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. Yeah, of course. Yeah, 100%.
I just think it's a bit discussed, like, oh no, well, George Lucas, the brilliant genius, used his filmmaking magic and when I'm going to make the most successful movie ever and just did it. It's like, no, this wasn't supposed to work.
Why didn't he do it again
then?
Or before.
Interesting that he wasn't invited back to direct the second one. Or indeed the third one. I mean, he essentially sort of, he was still heavily creatively involved, but like, he wasn't. And I do think a lot of his kind of weaknesses as a director are here. Yeah. All his strengths are as well. It's Star Wars.
Well, of course, you can't. The thing is, the man created it, so it's like you can't. But I mean, by all accounts, Mark Hamill's told lots of anecdotes about early read-throughs and what it was originally called, and the dialogue was terrible, and it was all, it was very expository dialogue. Like, isn't that thing when he reads off this thing where he goes like, what is it like? You can't do that. Like, we were gonna do this, and that'd be much like the battle on something 2 and 3, where things happened, and it's like, what is this dialogue? Like, so you can't say that with a straight face. It's like, did you read this out loud when you were writing it, or for humans to say, or did you what the fuck?
That's what this movie does that a lot. People speak in run-on sentences a lot, and it's like, we can't activate the shield generator without visiting the thing known on Qui-Gon 9, and it's just like, what?
Yeah, absolutely. Have you seen the redubs of Darth Vader?
Oh,
either James Earl Jones
Alan
himself
Ford,
or Alan Ford.
What was that called? That one, the Alan Ford one. It didn't have a funny name.
Is it Bricktop, like Darth Vader? Bricktop, something.
He goes, feed him to the pigs, Errol, and chucks him against the wall.
Yeah. Feed him to the pigs, Errol.
I love the whatever movie they got that James Earl Jones one from, when he's kind of pointing at the officer. He goes like, I'm going to take your mama on a date. She's going to have a good time, you dig?
It's something, because he goes, she's had a good time. She's been hanging with Willy the Pimp. It's just all the little grunts and groans, like when the guy goes, Lord Vader, and he just goes, huh? Oh.
It's such a give, because he doesn't have a mouth. So you just put whatever you want over it. It's fucking amazing. I mean, these two are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, right? That's what they became.
Yeah.
Because they observe all events. And I think in Kurosawa had a short, fat guy and a thin, tall guy that observe things. The Death Star's the hidden fortress. You know, it's all kind of there. You know that... I was just thinking about this earlier. Like, so Kenny Baker and...
Benny Caker.
Kenny Baker and... who's your man inside 3PO? Anthony Daniels.
Sorry, Anthony Daniels, yes.
They're supposed to hate... Well, Kenny Baker's dead, so isn't there anything, bless him. But they're supposed to hate each other's guts, right? Well, they hated each other. Right. And it's like, man, if I was stuck in a wheelie bin in a gay robot costume in Tunisia for a month, I'd hate whoever I work with as well. It's just like, I always look at this, I'm like, how is he alive? He's walking around in like a metal fucking costume. Like, how are they alive? It's insane.
Yeah, true. I mean, that thing must be, baking.
It must weigh a bunch as well.
Yeah, I don't know if is it fiberglass or... Because it looked kind of rubbery. But
so basically, either it's metal and he nearly died, or it's fiberglass. It's a miracle he didn't get cancer.
I was going to say, because if it was metal, he'd be cooking in that.
Yeah.
Like, he'd just be cooked. It'd be like an oven. I know it's reflective, but...
I've always liked all the distressing on it, though. Like, the oil leaking out, all the joints and stuff. Like, because he gets he gets a bit of a polish in later movies, doesn't he?
That's right. Yeah. No, it does look good. And then that is one thing about it that you wouldn't. I wouldn't have expected, I suppose, if you told me on spec. Like, it's like it does have a lived-in feel, much more so than I suppose it's. Well, it's pre-Alien, isn't it? But it's kind of got that alien. Like all the ships have that kind of alien look, where they're kind of just tons of.
I think I know this isn't the future. It's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But they called it like the used future, didn't they? That was the term for used future, and Alien has the same thing, because on Tatooine there's just loads of shit lying about, which is really cool because it's kind of great of the aesthetic of Star Wars. There's loads of crap lying about, and the good example is that there's things like Flash Gordon, but more so Star Trek. Star Trek was very, very, very about how everything is shiny and new and works. Yeah. And in Star Wars, everything's kind of shit and broken, which is great. Like, it's something that wasn't really done, so it kind of gave this kind of janky, bonky version of the... I mean, the only stuff that kind of works belongs to the Empire.
Well, it's funny as well because these things get spoken about in the same breath. I think sometimes simply because they both start with Star.
I agree. I fully agree.
Because I am by no means the authority on Star Trek here, but isn't Star Trek is about the future of the human race, and this is about elves on Spengelblar Fart. No one in here came from Earth, right? None of this started on Earth.
I think it's a really important distinction because I do think they exist. I really, really think they exist across that binary, because one looks forward and one looks backwards. Literally, like one's supposedly in the past, one's supposedly in the future. It's these things.
But it's very much the evolution of humanity, whereas this has very little to do with human. I know there's humanoids in it, but are we to believe that Luke Skywalker's a human, or because and then obviously we don't want to pull at that thread, but it's the point is this is in a galaxy far, far away. It's not here. Whereas Star Trek is about the evolution of civilization, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that is what is really lovely about that opening thing. It's like Basil Exposition putting Austin Powers in the time machine. He's saying you just what is it? Don't worry about it too much. To have a good time, and that goes for you all too. It's basically going. It is sort of going. Don't worry about it, and it's grounding it in that kind of fairy tale. I think
it's Alan Partridge going. Help me out, mate. Or just go with it. And that's right. And it is what. But that's the thing is like that very much. And you're absolutely right. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there because it's like this really was a come on. Not turn your brain off, but just leave your cynicism at the door and have a ruddy good time.
Have a ruddy good
time. And it just has. I think as a result of that, it's metastasized into this sort of community of, I won't say cunts, but but I am tired, so I might.
That's one of the most amazing. Finish your thought, please.
Right, yeah. No, I don't mean that, but it is like you say. There's this sort of like these warring factions and these people who insist that certain things mean other things, and they've uncovered the secret diary of George Lucas, where it's like, look, the point was just go with it. It's a big space opera. Don't worry about it, and that's it's just. But I think that unfortunately, just that plus enormous unmitigated success is what has led to stupid bullshit. Now, but I will say this though: things like The Mandalorian. See, I think something like The Mandalorian, because it's almost so far divorced from all this stuff. It just gets to start its own thing again. And yeah, you get people turning up like Luke. I think that was for me the weakest part of was it the second series where Luke Skywalker turned up at the end? I was like, kind of pulled me out of it.
But you mean at the end of the first series when he comes against Grogu? You mean
is that the end of the first?
Yeah, the first. He's then in he's in an episode of the Boba Fett show. He's in very extensively.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. I know what you mean, because it's like it's really lovely to spend time with Luke again, having the new films not really given us that. But also, I'm a bit like I was quite happy him not being here because we're having our own story. Having a new thing. And I think Favreau and Filoni just kind of get it. I think it's because there's a really compelling relationship between these two. So I think, as I said before, what really, really works about Star Wars 1 and Star Wars 2 and 3 is that they've got they're at their core about this really lovely friendship between these three people and then everyone around them. And The Mandalorian is a really sweet father and son thing. And that's doing Lone Wolf and Cub, right? That's doing, so it kind of works because you've got like this compelling and kind of warm relationship between these two people. And I think this Luke, Han and Leia. And what was really annoying to me about the new movies is you never got Luke, Han and Leia in the same room once. And it was such a waste because that was the most interesting, compelling thing at the heart of Star Wars. And, for me, the prequels didn't have that, which is why I don't find them as interesting. It's way too concerned with kind of galactic politics and the backstory and stuff. But there's no compelling, because like Obi-Wan and Anakin are supposed to be that, but they're sort of not. They just constantly talk. We're constantly told what amazing friends they are, but you don't. And that's just me. That's what I personally wanted from Star Wars. I didn't want galactic trade disputes.
The prequels seem very much, in hindsight, like a sort of ego-driven. Like it was like, no, I did think about all this stuff. Really, look here, and it's like he's more preoccupied with the appearance of, grandeur than really just telling a good story. And like you say, having the first three are very much character-driven pieces, especially the second one. And I will say this, like when I think we touched on this before, but Jedi was always my favourite as a kid. Empire, I think, is the best one. I think you and I for everyone at home, and I'll let you finish. Duncan and I completely agree about this. Right. Everything you said, I agree with. I think whenever we talk about these three films,
I agree completely with everything you say. I'm just saving myself breath, so carry on.
Fair enough. No. I'm Donald Trump, and I endorse this message. I think Empire is when we did, because I remember when we did the live stream of that, and I was just watching it, I think, on my iPad, and I've since watched it again on my big 65-inch television. It looks incredible. Like, that film is so well shot. And it just it's one of those movie magic, like, greater than the sum of its parts films. I think Superman is in that category. I know you're not as big a fan of Unsworth's photography on that, but I think it's just something that just has. Indiana Jones had the same thing, right? It's just kind of like there's just this unassailable filmic quality to it. And I think this has that a bit too, but this feels very sort of 70s and at times televisual, I think, with how it's framed. Not too much. Like, there are obviously big vistas and that kind of stuff, but it's a bit...
It's janky. This film is janky.
Yeah.
Like, and in a way...
And lovably so. Like, I think
Yeah.
it doesn't detract too much. But yeah, Empire feels like this huge movie. But this one always has that sort of... Everything's big and boxy and clunky, and all the crap on his belt's probably made out of, like, surplus, like army surplus.
Oh,
shit
it's so
from
kit bash, isn't it? Like, everything about it is kit bash. Like, the whole movie.
Yeah. But that's what makes it lovable as well. But like I think, a lot of people have said this was a film supposedly saved in the edit. That I think they had a lot that they had to kind of chop around and piece it together. I gather, anyway.
Well, is it funny because sometimes you watch the first film in a series and then it does well, and the first one's kind of scrappy and grimy, and then the sequel comes along when it's made loads of money and it's a bit too clean and glossy. And normally it's like, oh, that's not the same. But in Star Wars' case, it's like, no, I'll let Empire set the standard. Because Empire is so glossy and clean, but it still takes place in this used world. It still feels very much part of that world, Whereas this often, if you look too hard, you can see the joins big time. Like, it's part of its charm, It's something that always struck me even as a kid. There's really weird bits where, like, people are doing a line of dialogue and they just sort of turn from the end and it cuts. It's like, that's the take you had. Like, that's the one. Well, I guess if we're ever going to go, clap. It's just like, okay, all right then. I guess we're doing that.
Yeah. Well, it's like that bit early when they're in the escape pod and they're going away, and you've just got that. I assume it's ADR, but it's just like C-3PO's going, oh, it looks smaller from out.
Oh yeah. The damage isn't as bad from out here. And it's like, what are you referring to? Like, I get it, you got shot at, but no one earlier said, "Oh, we're fucked. This ship is fucked." He just goes like, "Oh, damage," and it's a bit like, what?
Isn't the damage on the inside?
It's just, like someone awkwardly filibustering in a conversation when they should just shut up. It's kind of like, which I suppose must be R2-D2's life. He just walk around with this fucker, like. His really irritating boyfriend who just won't shut up, and it's just like, dude, stop wittering. Can we just sit and be quiet for a minute?
Yeah. Well, it's that trope as well of having the character that doesn't speaking. I mean, they sort of do it with Chewbacca as well, but it's kind of like this thing that speaks in beeps and grunts, and it's like,
and everyone understands
everyone
it.
Seems to, everyone understands it and repeats what they just said for our benefit.
Yeah, it's. I mean, this is really great, this kind of video stuff. Something obviously to talk about as well is that they were just inventing stuff for this. Like Joe Johnston and Ben Burt, and like the documentary Light and Magic, which is a documentary about ILM that's on Disney Plus, which is really wonderful. It's like Brad was like, "Oh, you got to watch it," and so was Mark. Actually, it's really fucking cool. Like, they were making things up for this. They invented so much for this. They did all this kind of motion control stuff, loads of really early kind of what we would now call chroma key equivalents and chemical processes, and that, because that look, that's a video. It looks like video kind of. I guess I don't know how that's put in there, composited or rotoscoped. I'm so spoiled. I just fire up my fucking Adobe suite and fart it out in an afternoon.
So easily,
whereas these guys just invented it. They were busy inventing this shit.
Yeah, because bearing in mind, people, lay people, and it's not their fault. It's just how they've been conditioned with sort of film speak and stuff. But it's like, they will use CGI to simply mean special effects nowadays, and it's kind of like no. I've heard people talk about that, the CGI in Alien or whatever, and it's like no, you don't understand. There is no CGI.
Oh god, yeah. Particularly
like,
and I no fingers being pointed and fair play to you, but young people in particular is like the CGI is rubbish, and it's like there's no C there, you know what I mean? No. Let alone G. There's I, you know.
The C might stand for chemical and the G for, I don't know, graded. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing people don't get. It's like, green screen before, with something like Superman, for instance, he's flying on, blue screen, I think it wasn't that. But it's like, that then gets run through a chemical bath to take out the blue.
It's fucking wild.
And that's why his suit looks all fucking turquoisey and shit. And it's like, and that's how they did it. And then they ran that through I guess, what did they do? They ran it through the camera against the background.
It's like double exposed, I believe.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Wild. Like, I massively respect the analog process, but much in the same way I wouldn't go to a barber to have my leg cut off. I have no interest in it's all very romantic and everything. But.
We can get very, and we can tend to think, I mean, don't get me wrong, like, the compositing in this is very good, especially with all the model work and everything. And, like, even when Leia's ship's being absorbed by the Star Destroyer, it crosses through the light and it gets the shadow on it, and it gives it a real sense of depth and scale, and it's like, that's brilliantly done. But it's done chemically. It's not done like this is people running film through cameras, and you just think you wouldn't even know how that was going to turn out. At the time. It's
astonishing, like what ILM did, and I really do. Again, I thoroughly recommend the ILM documentary. But so oddly enough, they like invented all this stuff, and also it's taking what this is doing is taking a sort of material that was never given any budget or treated with any respect, and treating it with this amazing. These are people saying, like, you can make these stories at this level and have it mean something, and putting all this time and effort into inventing processes to have spaceships flying around and have a Death Star and to have a Star Destroyer, and all this stuff they kind of had to invent at Lucasfilm and ILM to make this happen. We're trying to get budget for a project that I'm going to DOP, which is a sequel to a space movie, and there are spaceships in it, and we have the models, right? Now, there's a certain effect we're trying to pull off, and they've said to me, can you do a test for this? So in my flat, I'm going to get a gimbal and some green screens and some lights and do some spaceship shots as a test, and then I'll put them into Adobe and I'll chuck a background on it, and it's just to see if this particular effect will work.
Nice.
I could do that on my own in fucking 4 hours because of what these guys did 50 years ago, right? Like, in that 50 years, like... The thing they created for us means that I now can fart it out like a lazy fuck, like, just, because I know what I'm going to do as well. The sun hits this flat, right? So I'm going to put the green screen against the back wall to save myself lighting the green screen, and I'm going to mount the ship on a gimbal. We're trying to do like a chase shot between spaceships. Going to get a toy spaceship from somewhere, and I could just knock that out like it's a wank. You know what I mean? It's nothing.
Yeah,
it's nothing. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I know. Well, it is. I mean, I've seen the first of those space movies that you speak of, and I won't be specific just in case that gets anyone in trouble. But it's amazing. There's amazing work in that, and that I believe was done in a sort of similar fashion. But I know that certainly lots of it was shot in someone else's flat. So that's it's very impressive, and you're right. I think there's a lot you can accomplish now. And as you say, because these guys did it, they were the pioneers of it all. And it's kind of like we've got we just developed digital ways of doing those processes, but we wouldn't, all the principles of chroma keying and all that kind of stuff. It all starts with this kind of thing.
Because you take the high contrast color, you make it flat, and you can remove that chemically, and that's why Superman's seat was green, because it took all the blue out of those hues, which.
Exactly.
All the rest of it.
Should have used fucking green, shouldn't it?
Well, because there's a red screen process as well. It's crazy. I don't know how they, and again, as let's see this shot here, right, with the land speeder, that all looks nice now. But in the original version, they literally smeared Vaseline I think, on the lens to just fudge out the wheels. It's like, but then you just go like, yeah, it's a force field or something. Yeah, fuck it. Nobody's seen anything like this before. Certainly not in colour, you know. Like there were things like Zardoz and Logan's Run, but they were part of the kind of cynical, and they're great movies. They're part of the kind of cynical post-crash version of things, you know. And we're really aimed at adults, more or less.
Yeah, true. Yeah, very true. I mean, that is. I think this as well was a sort of about mainstreaming sci-fi, because sci-fi, like you say, I mean, it's a good point. I don't think sci-fi, things like 2001, and it was all quite highbrow, and we tend to think of sci-fi as being, well, we don't, but people like my wife, for example, who thinks of sci-fi as being stupid juvenile crap for twats. Her words,
which is also how she describes Val Verde Broadcasting correctly.
Yes,
we are those
stupid crap for twats. You guys aren't twats, by the way. If you're listening, I'm sorry.
No, we're the twats. We're the twats.
We're the twats. Oh my god! So what was it? The Boba Fett TV show explained that stick.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
This is the notorious added rocks, by the way, around R2D2. There are more rocks, so he's more hidden. Like when you see, look at that, that's like CGI rocks. It's okay, fine.
He's a robot in a cave. I think you'd probably like.
How do you even get in there as well? And plus, the rocks aren't really in the reverse shot, so it's like.
Yeah, true.
I suppose that adds up, but anyway.
Excuse me. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. I think that, you know, this really kind of, in a way, democratized sci-fi, or at least made it more accessible, you know, as a thing, and like you could tell these stories against this backdrop. And as we've said, you know, as it went on to be, it was a way of examining the human condition through a fantastic prism. Horror does the same thing, but in a different way. But it's that thing of, you can talk about real things, but from a you know, through a heightened thing. You don't have to deal with realism, and as a result, you can speak more to the, you know, what am I trying to say? You know what I mean?
It's very tired, Duncan.
I'm sorry. Yes,
it's all good.
2-year-old.
It's so good.
I blame her for everything.
I think the other thing here as well, this is a kind of thing that's sort of lost in the wash, I think, a little bit with Star Wars. It's not, but it is. But, you know, they've put in Alec Guinness and Grand Moff Tarkin. Fuck's sake. What's his name? Peter Cushing. Yeah. So these are, yet again, this being the soup of things that it is, you know, a guy from Hammer horror movies, a guy from Ealing movies. It shows kind of, that casting shows a kind of cine literacy. It's harkening back to something else. Like, you know, Alec Guinness particularly didn't give a shit and hated working on it. There's a really funny letter there. He's kind of like, I'm working on some nonsense in Tunisia or whatever he says. It's you know, yeah, whatever. He's an actor. He's a fucking late in the day.
With an old coward. So, you know, that seems. I know what you mean. Yeah. Well, because there's been interviews with him. I think he did like, was it Parkinson? Parkinson had his giant meat chops. And he was like, what are you working on now? You know, he's like, well, I'm doing Star Wars, the first Star Wars.
It's called Star Wars 1, the first Star Wars.
It's called Star Wars 1, the first Star Wars. Anyone else who says otherwise is just a cunt. And that's true, that's what he said. And I think, and then afterwards he was interviewed, I think, and he's sort of going like, yeah, I'd no earthly idea that it would be any good whatsoever, but
well, none of them. I mean, one of the things that built the Lucasfilm empire is that obviously one of the very famous things that happened with this was the toys and the whole story of the toys, and Lucas agreed to a cut of merchandising because nobody wanted it. Like, nobody wanted the merchandising for this heap of shit. No one's going to watch that, let alone buy the toys. And it was the most barnstormingly successful kind of merchandising thing. It's something that I'm not a fan of it as a movie, but it's one of the things that Spaceballs is very on point about. is the kind of the marketing stuff. I've never really got Spaceballs is funny in fits and starts, but I've found the business of actually watching Spaceballs quite tedious.
I just think it's a collection of all the most obvious jokes about Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that I've never. Maybe I came to the table too late, but there's so many people who are like, Spaceballs, man, dark helmet, and it's like, yes, those are things that are, that's the name of the film and a character in it. But it's like, I don't, it didn't work for me. But I perhaps just saw it too late, maybe.
I think when I was like, because I love a bunch of Mel Brooks stuff, like I think he's genius, but like Spaceballs has never quite worked for me. And I know a few people who feel the same. Ivan feels the same. People feel the same. And it's not because I'm precious about Star Wars. I just don't think it's that funny. Like there are very good sketches in it and stuff, and there's some funny casting and everything. Like having Joan Rivers basically as C-3PO, that's funny. But like, it's like, yeah, like 3-minute sections of this are funny. But I'm not sure I can watch a whole film of it. You know what I mean?
It's an SNL sketch that they've stretched into a film, and sometimes that works, but not always. And I think it's funny because some spoofs, like it's a bit, I guess, like something like Austin Powers, I think is just funny in its own right, and then I think it's sort of against the backdrop of a Bond spoof. But it has gags in it that aren't necessarily, it doesn't rely on being a spoof of a particular film, whereas I think something like like Scary Movie and all that did it, and that's what has dated it so much, was like it really was laying into Scream and then later into other stuff, but it was like that's why it's not funny anymore, because those jokes were funny until everyone had done it. Like there's Matrix jokes in it and shit, and it's like, wow.
They're like fucking, and it just feels like MTV award bits stretched over 2 hours. I never got on board with those Scary Movie parodies. And then like ones like Vampires Suck and Superhero Movie and Date Movie, it's just like, ugh. Like they're really bad. They're not good parody. They're not good spoof. They're like those pornos without the sex, and it's like, well, why am I here?
Witless trash for cunt.
I've just noticed that Obi-Wan, I hope we get the reverse shot. Oh, he seems to have upon his right sleeve, his left sleeve, there's some Ribena. Or right sleeve.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, just right on his shoulder. Yeah.
Thanks HD. There's probably I've watched it. Maybe it's in a novel where we learn how Obi-Wan got Ribena on his tunic. Like, I don't. So here's another thing, which I guess they sort of extrapolated. Is like, definitely that's just what Obi-Wan wears, but that becomes like the Jedi uniform later. Yeah, and it's like, that adds up. I'll take it, but it's like that's just what costume department made. That's art. They made that up for him. But it's like, no, it's that.
It doesn't really jive with the whole kind of But before that, he was a hermit living in a cave trying to hide. It's like, well, if you were trying to hide that you're a Jedi, you wouldn't dress.
You would dress as one. Can you imagine if you were the last fireman in the galaxy and you were just walking around in a fireman's uniform, going into co-op in Tatooine, buying your milk in a fireman uniform?
But I can't possibly wear anything else. I'm a fireman, It's like, right. Okay. I don't think you quite grasp
I'll
the concept.
just popped into town. Are there any fires for me to extinguish? What with my being a fireman? No, Ben, no fires. Oh, sure, because I love spraying them with water and the such.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. We're both dying of we're both dying of a horrible chest thing.
We've all had it. Sorry, my chair's creaking terribly as well. I'm just getting over that, and so I do apologise. I think the trouble is when I talk for extended periods of time, it sort of just starts to create. It just starts to irritate. But anyway, I love how the set design in this is just full of shit. It's like, and we're not supposed to question any of it, but there's like a table with what appears to be sort of 2 taps on it, but no basin.
I think it's kind of what's great about Star Wars is kind of mystery. Is the kind of like you don't know any of it. Yeah, totally. And it's all kit bash. It's all old shit. But it, just it's all just thrown together.
Dirty shit.
And you kind of wonder what it's for. It's like, why is there like a 3-headed spoon? It's like, it's a space spoon. I don't know.
Eating 3 tapioca. Space tapioca.
Space tapioca. It's what firemen eat in the fire station, which is where I used to live.
Shut up.
Is Alec Guinness in a big yellow helmet? Like,
just walking around with the bit on the end of the hose, but no hose. That's mad old Ben.
He's
He's a firefighter.
He's got a Bluetooth hose.
Yeah. This guy, so he's a dirty shitter, but so's the guy who goes like, "Don't try to whatever with your
sorcerer's ways."
Yeah, and he's like, his nostrils flare when he talks. This guy, he's smelling the
you see the guy in white to the left of him, that guy.
Yeah.
He's like a character now. Like he's been in a bunch of cartoons and like.
He looks like Sam Elliott.
He really does look like Sam Elliott, doesn't he?
I like your style, dude. Okay. Something I like about this one, and that just sort of seems kind of hand waved in the films that supposedly lead up to this, is that Vader is very much his subordinate.
Yeah. He's kind of not rank and file, but he's kind of muscle. You know, he's kind of muscle. The fact that he's also magic, but he's like what is it she said? She even says to him, like, oh, I see they've let you off your chain or something. When Leia says to him on the Death Star, like, he's very much kind of subordinate. And I think that's been explained away as like he got demoted because of something. I don't know, he used all his paid time off and then tried to put in for more or whatever.
Like the Emperor just like, I know. It's like, what? Like, I don't like that you did that or whatever. You know, it's
that's normally considered gross misconduct.
You like touched the Emperor's cat inappropriately or whatever.
Been stealing WD-40 for his knees or whatever. Or fucking no.
Yeah. I need more Bacta
for my bell end.
Yeah, it's, you know, and like you say as well with this whole Jedi uniform thing, it's like Luke's essentially wearing the same thing. It's just sort of Komodo, whatever, you know.
PJs, yeah. This is all dark as fuck, by the way. Well, firstly, it's like, these are two clubs in random for sad people. Only Imperial Stormtroopers are so precise. It's like, well, not usually. Usually they're useless cunts. But also, I mean, this really speaks to. I mean, this film also has a genocide in it.
Smoke, there's fire.
Did I tell you I'm a fireman?
Where are you going?
This is just.
Is there a fire?
I'll take you in my fire engine that I keep parked outside my cave. We could put the lights on.
I bet you're wondering what that pole is for. No, actually, it's for when there's a fire. It's like, for fuck's sake.
I come down with my fireman chums.
And there's this sort of like horribly organised band of marauding ambulance drivers or something that are all out to enslave the universe and kill all firemen.
The idea that there's just an endless conflict between the emergency services. So the AA keep getting involved. It's like, you're not actually the fourth emergency service. We've got more beef with the RNLI. Get the fuck out of here. Mountain Rescue are higher on the totem pole than you cunts. Yeah, the thing. Sorry, that's what I was going to say. Swiftly to genocide, because like this, they're fucking going to give like Thorazine or something to her. Like the droid's got a fucking needle on it. They commit genocide against Alderaan. You see his auntie and uncle vaporized. They've murdered the Sand People. I mean, it's really fucked up. That's the proper 1970s. The 1970s cynical sci-fi shit coming out is
Here
there.
comes the party ball.
That would not be. Look how wobbly. Do you want that injecting you? That's probably the point. But it's really wobbly fucking. It's like a drunk on a skateboard. Do you know what I mean? Coming at you with.
I had to have a little bit of minor surgery recently. I basically removed from my arm, and I went in to have it done. And the guy's chatting to me, and I'm looking at him, and his hands. Not kidding, were like this.
Oh God!
You can't see if you're listening, but they were like, he had the shakiest fucking hands, and I'm like, "Are you doing this?" Like, and it was like, he chatting away, and then and he was like, "Right up on the table."
Well, look how 3PO just chucks that corpse on the. And that's just taken. That's played straight. Sorry. Anyway, a shaky man was about to put a knife in you.
Yeah, and he basically had to cut off part of my arm, and he had shaky fucking hands. That's the story, really. But it was a bit like, you know, when you're like literally that.
Do you want a drink, mate? I'll have him one.
Good, tie the edge off a little bit.
Don't mind, mate. I can't find my glasses. It's all right. Is that the sharp end of the scalpel? Don't worry about it.
Nurse, pass me the scalpel, please. Speaking of things like that, I watched the first series of Slow Horses.
The Kevin Costner.
Gary Oldman.
Oh no, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, Slow Horses.
Gary
Slow Horses. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. It's really good, but I mean, it's right up our street anyway because Gary Oldman's you're first introduced to Gary Oldman's character farting himself awake on a sofa. So I can't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah, that's very on brand for us. Sorry.
This shit is so jank, isn't it? Now this is the problem with putting on the CGs.
Yeah, it's so kind of, and they were preemptively lining it up with Episode 1 because that's how Tatooine looks in Episode 1, and they use those models as
right.
Because you know the '97 remasters existed as part of the preamble to Episode 1. They were shooting Episode 1 when those came out. This fucking CGI monster walks past there.
Yeah, right, like blocks the entire frame. What was that hiding? It's like, and that's what I mean. It's a sort of real vanity projects. Like, no, I didn't like that shot because Obi-Wan's beard was to the left and it should have been to the right because of the lore on Splangelbar 5.
Yeah.
And it's like, no one's watching your crap thinking like that, okay? Like, everyone's going, when's the Space Wizard going to do something?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It shows a real lack of sort of understanding of his audience. Parts of 3PO's costume there are really fucked up, aren't they? Where he sat down. It's like they've had to rip it apart so he can sit down on the thing.
These aren't the droids you're looking for, but in case you were wondering, yes, I am a fireman.
Yes. Go, quick.
I'm from Pontypandy.
Oh. He cut off fireman's son's arms and legs and chucked him into a volcano.
Well, yeah, that is the funny thing about the prequels. Is like, of the 3 prequels, whatever the bloody hell what was it called?
Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith. It was the best one. It was still.
Yeah. It's not saying much, but it's the best. It's got some genuinely really atmospheric moments. Like people like to talk about the opera scene. That is one. I think there's one where he's like going to the temple and Padme's kind of sensing him from across the other side of Coruscant, and it plays that kind of quite eerie music. Mm-hmm. So this is a thing. So I believe like Rob Bottin did stuff here, and I'm pretty sure Rick Baker as well did different creatures for this.
Cool.
You know, I like because there's we don't serve their kind in here. They won't serve the droids, right? And it's like that's because of the Clone War against the droids, but also robots don't drink. So
you're just taking up space.
Just taking a seat.
Literally the devil there a second.
Yeah, I know, the devil guy. It's just the devil. It's great.
It's the devil, and then there was like in the background there was a guy in just like a space suit, like with a space helmet on. It's like, is that a bloke got there from Earth?
I like to think it's just like a goldfish. That spacesuit's full of water. There's just a goldfish inside. There's a bunch of stuff you don't know when, because there are random just inserts of newly shot shit quite a bit. It's like, here you go, it's your spacesuit, guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that just looks way too polished compared to the rest of it.
It's fucking yanks on that guy's shirt. Like, what the fuck, mate?
Fuck off.
And he's getting milk or something.
Yeah, blue, please. Like when they say, we don't serve your kind in here, and he's like, we'd better wait outside. Yes, I think you'd better had. Blah blah blah, and it's like, that's bad dialogue. Like, wouldn't they just leave? Like, do you know what I mean? It's that's what I mean. It's so preoccupied with the procedural. It's like, well, we have to know why they leave. It's like, we do. Like, they don't have to say it. Like, we have to know where they're going, so they don't know where to meet them. Bollock chin.
I always thought it was a bum face. Look how we differ. Bum, yeah. Two sides of the same coin we are.
Two cheeks of the same arse.
Two balls of the same sack. Let's unite the clans.
Yeah.
I don't like you.
It's like, you've got a face like a fucking melted cock. I wouldn't go around pointing.
I will bomb you sideways.
You bonky pig nose.
I've got a laser sword.
Off it comes.
They're a fire hazard.
Yeah, again, trying to keep a low profile. I'll put out a fire with my fire hose. I used to be a fireman. It's like, dude.
I gather there aren't many firemen around.
Apparently, I'm the last one. It's illegal to be me. Is anybody else on fire anyway? Oh, fuck.
I'm the hero next door. My engine's bright and clean. I'm always on the scene.
In case you're wondering, if you're not old and from Britain, we're referencing a program called Fireman Sam. We weren't originally.
Still goes, by the way.
Oh, does it really?
Still exists.
Is it CGI now?
It's CGI. And it doesn't have that.
In our day, it was a claymation show about Welsh firemen, and that's not where we were originally at when we started doing fireman stuff, but it's where we got. And I'm happy with that. I'm all right with that.
I'll go with it.
And 45 minutes into the film, some charisma turns up.
Fast sure. The what was it? The SNL sketches that that alleged rapist Kevin Spacey did all the impressions for, like, wasn't it for the? Oh, it was Christopher Walker. It was this Christopher Walker, wasn't it, for auditioning for Han Solo? Fast ship, and it's like, and it's just doing his. I used to think that impression was great until I learned to do one of my own and realised it wasn't. And that sounds really arrogant, but you know, it's like. But
you're talking about an alleged rapist, so it's fine.
That's true. Yeah,
don't worry about it. Shit on him all you like. Shit on him all you like,
True.
mate. No one cares.
Fuck cunt. And then his Walter Matthau was pretty good, and that was when he was doing
James Stewart as well. Good James Stewart.
Yeah,
there's a great
yeah.
In the actor studio when he says do James Stewart, and he just does that thing with his hand, and people like cheer before he's even spoken. It's really good.
Yes.
Unfortunately, Kevin Spacey's a piece of shit, allegedly. There's that because Mark Hamill being a low key sort of voice god, he does a good impression of Harrison Ford, and I think he's talking about this is something I saw. You at home have probably all seen it, but if you haven't, he's talking about the trash compactor scene, and he's like, they come out of the water and they stand up, they go for the next shot. But my hair's dry, and I go to wardrobe. My hair's dry, and I think Harrison Ford says something like, "If they care about your hair, we're in a lot of trouble. It ain't that kind of movie, kid."
Yeah, he sort of has this real old world presence. I mean, I don't know how old he was. It was in his. I think he's like mid-30s.
He's like 30, 35 or something. I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and supposedly was a kind of carpenter and handyman not long before.
Yeah.
Did we talk about Ford recently? Were we talking about Ford because we were talking about Jedi? Was that it? I feel like you and I, unless we just did it in our own time when I was around yours, we were talking about.
What's this shit as well about Greedo shot first? Like, is that so? Did they do that retrospectively?
Originally, Han shot first, so he just kills Greedo in cold blood, and then they made it so. I think they made it so Greedo shot first, and now they shoot at the same time. And like I think Han, it's really bonky, and Han's, and it's just like, look, you've established that he's supposed to be sort of. He's not evil, but he's certainly not someone to necessarily be trusted. It's fine.
He's a Machiavel, right? He's sort of like, he'll just do whatever to get ahead, and that's.
Yeah, he's a rogue. He's roguish. That's who he is. Like.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, they make his head go like whoop.
Yeah,
so he looks like
dodges it. Like this is okay.
Right. Well, if you can just dodge gunfire in this universe at virtually point blank range, then what's the what?
Well, do you know what? Because I have a sad life. I sort of sometimes think about like blaster bolts. It's like it's all kind of like, is that better? Because they're quite slow. You can I'm not saying I can move out of the way, but you can see them, and it's like, is that better? I don't know. Probably they go through armor or some shit. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, I mean, Harrison Ford is probably. I think he probably is the MVP of this. He's the one that you can kind of go, oh, there's an actual human, like there's a character that I can relate to, and I don't know if that's him or if it's the writing. I guess it kind of is him, isn't it? Because the writing's not great for him.
It's not there, yeah. Like, I mean, he's, he has that movie star quality. I think that's what really works in Empire, right? Is because Carrie Fisher's fucking awesome. Like, she had really good presence as well. So you put those two together. And I know they were banging as well, but you put those two together and you've got this like amazing kind of emotional heart of the film. And again, like, he's not quite there in this one, but Mark Hamill's tremendous. He's an amazing actor. And like, so when it gets into its stride with Empire, and particularly I think it's his best performance in Jedi personally. Like, you have those three at the center of the film that are like got real kind of You know, a couple of them are kind of more movie stars. One's more of an actor. Yeah, it's this real thing. One of the best things about The Force Awakens is the fact that Harrison Ford is there. You know, like Harrison Ford is great. This fucking bonky CGI Jabba the Hutt.
I forgot about this.
Boba Fett, though. Yeah, this is the, Boba Fett wouldn't be in this movie otherwise. So you get a little bit of Boba.
Do you?
Yeah, it's like that. So I don't know if it was newly, because this was all actually shot, right? And he was just a guy.
Yeah, he was just a bloke in it. Yeah.
There he is. Oh, I guess he must. I don't know if he was like.
Is that inserted? He doesn't look like.
It looks like he's not there. Yeah. So I was going to say I don't know if that's original. Because he kind of like.
Look, we put Boba in there too.
Look, he walks over. It's the bit when he walks over his tail. Do you remember?
Yeah, and he goes like ding, 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 ding.
Oh,
for God's sake.
Did you ever have I had the video box set of like the re-releases, and they had the little, and it's George Lucas going, but then we realised he walks behind him, and we didn't know what to do because it didn't make any sense. And it's just like, you could have him just step over his tail, I guess. Like it looks, you draw attention to it by making him go.
He looks like he's sort of phasing into him as well because he's not.
Yeah, right.
It's so bad, like.
And this is the second swing at this, by the way, because in '97 it looked much worse. Like this is like the 2001 DVD version, which is still shit. And it's like Jabba. I know he's supposed to be a glutton, but I didn't like Jabba the Hutt in Jedi is huge, right?
Yeah.
It's like fucking maybe just don't have this scene. Here you go, look, Boba Fett. Just you get a proper look at him now,
mugging for the camera, and then fucking. Oh, for God's sake! Yeah, that's just. Why? Like what? I swear it's just
money.
Exactly. It'll be a thing like, well, I had to include that character in this so that I didn't have to pay my ex-wife. Why? You know what I mean? Because of whatever. There's some sort of friggin' or tax wheeze or something that's gone into that. Yeah, for God's sake. But
there we go.
Whatever.
And that's supposed to be the introduction to the Falcon as well, because we just saw it, like kind of not in full, but you just saw it. And it's like, also, even now, right? But especially when I was a kid, they're like, "Oh, look at this piece of junk," and it's like, it looks like every other spaceship. Like as far as
what about it is particularly
what's so bad about this? Have you seen where you live? You lived in a dirt hole drinking blue Nesquik, and you're bitching about probably what the first spaceship you ever seen. You little fucking scrub. These guys got tipped off by Cocknose. They're fucking Ghostbuster costumes. I do think like the Stormtrooper design is one of my favourite things about Star. I just think it's so cool. I've always really liked the Stormtrooper armour.
A lot of them are like the were supposed to be Darth Vader costumes or something. There's a lot of disused. I don't know if Stormtroopers are, but there's like Boba Fett was, and there's a bunch of them in. Yeah,
so Boba Fett was originally they were going to be called Super Troopers, and they were all going to look like Boba Fett.
Right.
So there's a thing. So Joe Johnston, who directed Rocketeer and Captain America, he created the Boba Fett thing so there's a costume test where it's just white. And that was called like a Super Trooper, but then they ended up going down the Stormtrooper route, which is kind of interesting because it turns out before the Stormtroopers, they were the clone troopers who were clones of Jango Fett and Tiger got its stripes, blah blah blah. But behind the scenes, it's got its kind of thing,
origins.
Yeah.
This is what as a kid I was gravitated towards with Star Wars. It was like there were two things. There was lightsaber fights, and then there was kind of in cockpit flying around thing that I used to my mum and stepdad used to leave me in the car, not irresponsibly, but if we went to someone's house or whatever, I'd be left in the car while they went and chatted to them or whatever, and I used to jump in the front and pretend I was in the Millennium Falcon and flick all the switches and pretend I was flying, and no doubt they came back to the car and nothing worked like it was supposed to.
Well, you know the two things you could do was like put the hazards on and maybe warm up the lighter if it had one. Which, by the way, kids, cars used to have lighters, and they weren't lighters. They were these horrifying things that let you heat a coil of metal till it was orange, like it was just in a car.
It was sort of like it was that, and toasters obviously used the same technology to pop out when they were hot enough. But yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. Can you still? I think you probably have to tick the smokers pack when you order a new car now. But everything, this is the thing. Like that's why when you get in a car, you have to have a 12-volt adapter to go in those holes. Although they're all being replaced with USBs now, and now USB-Cs. But it was for the longest time you'd had to buy all these adapters to fit in the 12-volt socket, and I think a lot of cars do still have them. But it's like, that I don't know if mine does actually. Maybe it does in the boot. I don't know. But they like, and that was this holdover from because a cigarette lighter had to go in it. So but very few people smoke in cars. In fact, I saw someone smoking in a car the other day, and I thought, you filthy bastard.
That just feels so gross, isn't it?
Yeah.
Peter Cushing is just amazing. This is an amazing actor, and it's just like, it's easy to forget that he's kind of just in one, and
Well, kind of easy.
I don't have the problem with that people have. I don't think it's that bad. Like, other people really have a problem. I don't think it's that bad.
Because they got, what was his name? Guy
Henry. I really like Guy Henry as well. So.
Yeah, I do too. And I just sort of almost wish they had just made him up to look like him and just use his performance properly.
Well, do you remember?
I would have just gone with that.
You know how it opens with his face reflected in the glass?
Yes.
They should have just done. I thought it was going to be just that.
Yeah, I remember you saying, because we went and saw it together, didn't we? And I remember you saying that, and I was like, yeah, that would have made so much more sense. Because when it was just a reflection, it worked really well. But then he turns around and he's like, no.
And just his presence, that would just cast his presence over the movie, and it would be there. But,
he does have that kind of Donald Trump hair that looks like it might, in a small breeze, it will just look.
Just
or
go
like
off
Roger
on one
Moore,
strand.
when it's like, it just looks sort of held in place by whispers and dreams. It's like, what is holding that there?
Whispers and dreams. Yeah, it looks like it looks like it's whippy ice cream. It comes off a fucking
sort of, yeah, but it's like, what's holding that? Like, normally nowadays you can kind of see if someone's got product in their hair, but like there, it's just sort of kind of. Roger Moore had the same thing where it's just like, what is holding that together? Like some sort of force field. It's weird. Anyway, there you go.
I will say, all the stuff they fucked around with, they didn't bother change the janky ass lightsabers, because that'd be a crime.
Yeah.
I
know, because I thought that's what they were going to do. I remember when they announced the special editions, I thought they were going to make the lightsabers look wicked, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
It looks just like, because it literally is just a cut, run in, jag the thing in.
Shove the thing on, yeah. And I think he even turns it off and it goes in one frame. Like, I get it, because it was. I love the claymation stuff with the chessboard. Is fucking great. It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's it's just a bit like, of all the things you're like, I'll put a giant fucking alien's bum in a shot or whatever. Have a little janky dancing robot, but you won't fix the fucking swords. Just something like by the second and third one, they'd massively improved that, haven't they? Like, so I think they tried glowing rods, it didn't work, and then they just rotoscoped it.
I think so. But, well, I think they said as well. Wasn't it? They were just rods wrapped in mylar, weren't they? That would reflect.
Yeah, like what you kind of put on the day would kind of show. It was supposed to show up kind of white on screen, but sort of like
because it's not really blue, is it? In this, like his lightsaber supposed to. But I guess it is. Yeah, it's sort of got a bluish.
Just about,
hue.
And then you sort of go like, well, is that changed? Was it? But again, have they done anything to it? I mean, it's a fucking cool thing, right? Like, it's a fucking cool thing. Like, you see that for the first time, it's kind of swords are made of lasers.
The Jedi can feel the Force flowing through him and fires everywhere.
Flowing through you, like me after my first bowl of bran in the morning. Space bran.
Space bran.
I don't like toast, it's a fire.
Bran keeps me space regular.
That's different to normal regular.
Because gravity and the such.
And now a word on fire safety.
It's just this insufferable old man that just bangs on.
Yeah. It's a bit like what's his name? Jonathan Rhys Davies and fucking marijuana. Like, you cannot shut that.
Oh my god, I know. Look, because he's seen Reefer Madness too many times. Society's gonna collapse. It's like, fucking hell, mate. People have moved on to meth. Be worried about that.
Your last remaining years on Earth, and that's how you
Well, he's back in Indiana Jones 5.
Yeah.
He's probably the same age as Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say it's not the case so much when he turns up as a ghosty in the next ones, But for someone who's not having a good time and doesn't care, he's fucking great in this. It's just.
Oh, you know that he's giving it his all.
Yeah, he's totally pro, right? He's just.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
There you go.
And again, like we said before, it's like, it's derision is funny, but like we do love these films. I certainly do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's fucking great. Like, it's great.
Yeah.
And my problem with these is I just find them hard to watch because there's so much baggage attached. And also because I've talked about Star Wars on the internet, I've faced so much abuse for having pretty middle-of-the-road opinions about some of it. You know what I mean? And it just makes you weary. There are certain things, like I remember, like when, for example, when we worked with Oliver Harper back in the day, he gave like basically a tepid review of Batman, and this guy came out and started acting like he was like did this really insane, scary reaction video against it. And it's like all he'd said was like, "I'm not mad about this." It's not like he'd said, "If you like it, you're a paedophile, and by the way, I'm speaking about you. Here's your postcode." And this guy came out and fucking lost his mind. I had one guy fucking kept registering. When I didn't like Man of Steel, he kept registering different accounts with different Superman character names to follow me onto different videos and harass me over the fact I didn't like Man of Steel. And it's like
that was me, but...
there's Duncan, yeah.
No,
it's like, do you think that you keep doing this? I'm going to go, fair point, change my mind. I better tell everybody. Like, what's wrong with you? Like,
I think, especially with things like Star Wars and Batman '89 is comparable. Is that thing of the zealots, the adherents to the religion can't stand other people not getting it. I think it's what it takes a certain mindset though, doesn't it, as well, to be like the rest of the world must agree with me, and that somehow. I guess it's a sort of zero-sum game mentality, which it in a very loose way films are, because I guess if enough people hate them, they won't make any more, and your precious thing won't get continuance. But I think when people do shit like that, I mean, I largely ignore comment sections and what people say about me, because it's not that I don't care, but I just think with things like that, I go, well, I'm not gonna get into this with you. I'm really sorry, but I'm not gonna waste my time. And my family's time, quite frankly, sat here talking to someone who thinks that, like, and you realise as well. I think the internet has just made me realise just how differently wired people are, and I think that's, we just don't give enough space for each other in that. We've got to this point where it's like it's us and them, and everyone must be vanquished, and everyone's stupid for thinking a certain way. It's like, no, it's just maybe people come at things differently, and maybe people prioritize, have just different ways of thinking, and maybe some people are pig ignorant fuckers as well. But like, don't you know what I mean? But like, we're all people, and we're just very different, and just make space for that rather than sort of. But I'm not going to spend all my time telling someone on the internet that who's not receptive anyway, and it's just going to like. Say, well, you're a stupid prick, and go away, because that's what everyone's more interested in face saving than they are in learning. Yeah,
well, you're not allowed to be wrong, and you're not allowed to change your mind even upon receipt of new information, which is completely fucking insane. Like, it's insane. Yes. It's absolutely deranged.
Well, why say anything anyway? I had this, I'm kind of into my watches, and the watch world can be like this. I think because anything can, I don't think
absolutely.
Uniquely attracts anything like that. But and it's certainly true of Star Wars stuff as well. But it's that thing of like, you always get into those spats with people, and I remember one guy going, well, I don't have anything to learn from you lot anyway. And it was like, so why are you here saying anything? Why do you say anything online if not to test it as an idea and see if it stands up? If you come at it from that point of view, you're going to learn a lot more. You're going to be a much more well-rounded human being. If you come at it from like, what is it your job to educate the world then? Is that your fucking, right. Is that how?
And why are you in like, oh, well, I don't need anything from you. It's like, so you came on your phone onto Facebook to a specific group to post for no reason. Like, what the fuck are you on, you
What's
mad
the point
cunt?
of a forum or in any kind of public space of expression if not to say things and learn from others, and exchange ideas? what else is it for? If you're just there to sort of shout into the ether and get annoyed when people challenge you on it, it's like, why are you even here, you daft cunt?
Well, I think there's Toby. I'll kind of reference a few things Toby brought up in the Star Wars chat, so that's interesting. But Star Wars and other things, and all fandoms really, or a lot of fandoms, it's like, if you insult the thing, you're insulting them. So you're not insulting Star Wars, you're insulting me. You know, and sometimes it can be so zealous, and it's like, I don't particularly like this one, and they're like, I will fucking kill you, and it's just like, okay.
You just said you don't like me. It's like, that's incredibly narcissistic, solipsistic, whatever you want to call it. You know, it's like, and I think as well, people are very supercilious with how they express themselves with regards to this stuff as well. Like, they talk about it like they're literally talking about space or physics or, you know, or whatever, like geopolitics. They talk about it like it's a real thing to be explored, and it's like, no, it's made up crap. Like, it's made up bullshit for people to sort of just be entertained for a few hours. You have to start from that place. I'm sorry, but I know what you mean. The logic goes, I've invested so much of myself in this, and I think as well it goes deeper than that, doesn't it? Because you see, I even know people who are they buy all the fucking Lego things, and they have a floor of their house dedicated to, you know, Star Wars ephemera, and because it's all about not having to grow up, it's all about, you know, remaining, you know, like getting those good vibes over and over again from that thing you loved as a kid. And it's like, I get it, we all get it, we all get nostalgia, right? Nostalgia's ever present everywhere we fucking turn these days. Something is reminding us of the past, but like, why don't you question yourself when someone insults it and you get your back up because it's a thing you're really invested in? Why don't you ask yourself why you're so invested in it, and maybe go, yeah, that's just for me, and it's not for the rest of the world to fuck it. You know, you know, be a backwards looking dickhead all your life if you want. Don't grow up.
Hey, if it makes you happy,
but
more power to you.
No, and really, I mean that. You know, I mean, I do. I think. I mean, I don't think it's healthy necessarily to do it too much, but that's on you. But, you know, I think don't lash out. I think it's just, you know, look, the internet's made it very easy for people to lash out, but it is just words on a screen at the end of the day, usually badly written with poor grammar and hardly, you know, not very concise. Some people write, I mean, no offense to them, but like, some people write comments on our videos, and it goes like, see more, and you click on it, and it's like this, it's just a giant unpunctuated
I've said this
paragraph.
before. I've said this before. The dreaded see more, and you click on it, and it's like one more paragraph or one more see more or one line, and you go, fair enough. But when it's this massive wall of text, it's like, someone did that once in one of my videos, and it was this huge essay, and I just replied to it, no thanks, mate, I'll wait for the paperback. And he said, what do you mean by that? And I just left it. And then I came back later checking comments, and he'd deleted it. So I think he'd figured, it took him a minute to figure out. So I was like, was I being too obscure? It's like, I found this version of your comment in the bookshop at an airport, and it's £25, but the small one will be, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just, bless him, it took him a while to sort of get there. So I'm not reading that. I'm sorry. And it frightens me how long it takes people to write. Like, how long does it take to write that? Like, it's unbelievable. Like,
yeah, people, I mean, I think as well, I have a degree in English, and I write a lot, you know, for work and stuff. Sorry, I'm just readjusting myself. My chair's going to squeak, and I'm really sorry.
and it's more stuck to his leg.
No, but I'm also used to structuring sentences and understanding, like, not to speak in run-on sentences, and not to, you know, and be concise with what you're saying. You know, say things in as few words as possible. You know, most people aren't, and most people it's just a stream of consciousness, and it's like, but the arrogant thing about that is that it assumes that everyone else needs to get into your head in order to understand it. You know, if you this is what I like. People get annoyed with me because I'll go through, like, they'll put some rant on there, and they'll be like, no, that's stupid because they should have done this, and I'll go, should have, darling, and they're like, oh, fucking grammar Nazis, and it's like, Yeah, because if you don't say things in plain English, people can't fucking understand. Don't expect me to interpret what you've said the way you meant it and somehow be inside your head. The world doesn't owe you that. You know what I mean? Like, speak everyone else's language, properly so that we can understand what you mean. Or shut up. Like, don't stand there. You know what I mean? It's so fucking arrogant. And you see that with a lot of this stuff. It's like, no, fucking... And it's like, look, mate, if you can't write properly, we can't understand you. And if we can't understand you, we're not going to get on board with what you're saying. So, you know what I mean? And it's like, and that's what that wall of text represents. Is just someone probably didn't even look at it while they were doing it. There's no editorial in there at all, is there?
It's just sort of like automatic writing, yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. It's like an AI fucking whatever. I just, I'm sorry, but I don't have time for that. And if you do, it would question your choices in life, frankly. If you have time to sit there and read that and take it all in, fucking hell.
So, and if these people have already commented about how we're not talking about Star Wars.
Yes, probably.
In defense, we should talk about Star Wars. In defense of I think our opening gambit was, you've heard everything you need to about Star Wars. So we're just abusing this as a venue to not talk about Star Wars. So something I think I mentioned the Empire Strikes Back thing. It's something Toby told me about, said to me that, and I've thought about a lot since in my viewings of Star Wars. And the Death Star is a wonderful example of the Empire builds things that are A, anti-organic, and B, mockeries of nature, and Vader is one of them, in Star Wars, the first Star Wars, but it goes through to the other movies as well. In the Death Star, that's no moon. It looks like a planet, but it isn't one. And the Attack Walkers, they look like animals, but they're not animals. And the ATSTs look like animals, but they're not animals. They're these kind of grotesqueries and these mockeries of nature and these kind of machine things, and to the degree of being impractical, but like it needs to exist as part of what they are. And I think all of the stuff inside the Death Star, because this is great. This is infiltrating the enemy's castle and everything is what it is. It's fucking amazing. Like, there's a great, when they take Chewie into the lift, there's a massive kind of shaft that just drops down. Yeah, and like this, right? Like, it's an amazing piece of set design. And this, where the prison blocks go all the way back. I really love how this is edited, by the way. I think it's a really clever scene because, the pretense they have to maintain for the cameras is that Chewie's gone nuts. And they have to pretend like they're trying to shoot Chewie as well, but they're not. They're shooting the officers and shooting the cameras. And there's all these wonderful little edits where there's inserts of the cameras blowing up. And the Chewie makes the noise. Same one again. It's just, like flipped, if that. Yeah. But it's really great. It's a really wonderful bit of editing. It's really frenetic. It's show, don't tell. And it establishes everything you need to know very quickly and very swiftly. It's really brilliant filmmaking. Like, it's, people like Star Wars for a reason, I guess,
I like this. We're all fine here. Everything's fine here.
It's great.
How are you?
And he winces. Look.
And you're right. I love the infinite corridor of the prison, which is obviously just like a mirror or something. But it gives depth. You're right. It's like that shaft and everything. It's depth. Everything is like this. This goes on forever because they're inside a giant planet. Yeah, they're in the sort of bowels of this.
Look at it. It's great.
As you say, yeah.
And Luke can't quite hack it, and he's bumbling around and stuff. It's wonderful. It's so good. Yeah. It's the first time they met, if you don't count coming out the mum's fanny.
Huh? Oh. I'm Luke Skywalker. Who introduces themselves like that? It's like, hi, I'm Luke Skywalker. You might remember me. Okay.
Okay, bye. I like Leia as well, being kind of like no nonsense and kind of, she's in charge, really. She's just been locked up. And then when she just walks out and starts cussing them straight away. Yeah. It's like, they're saving you, for fuck's sake. But also, I guess you know what you're fucking doing. But, dude, I do like the evil boardroom as well. It's very good evil boardroom.
Like, those chairs look awful. Like, they're just literally sheets of metal.
It's as bad as fucking Leia's bed in that cell. It's just a slab.
Yeah. Do you know what, though? That would make more sense in Skynet than what we got in Skynet.
They've got like Pilates balls to sit on, and there's like a ping pong table.
And a water fountain and fucking cafeteria. That's an office. What
Car park outside.
Charging station for EVs.
Star Wars is dark. Like, he just blasted that stormtrooper and he falls down dead in the doorway. It's fucking wild. I love that. The fucking Return of the Jedi has that insert of that stormtrooper straight up getting shot in the head. Like, it's like with a little squib coming off the top of his forehead. It's fucking crazy.
Because I mean, there is blood in Star Wars. Like earlier when the guy got his
Cuts
arm
the guy's
cut off
arm
and
off.
Yeah.
This is the kind of strange, the Spielberg and Lucas of it all, where you can do what you want and still get a U or a PG. It's something that it's something that's really caught up. Natasha Kaplinsky's taken over as director of the BBFC. Did you hear that?
What?
Yeah. Now, I don't know what she's a broadcaster, so I totally get it, and I don't know what her background is, but she's the newest co-director of the BBC. Because it's something, that's our MPAA, in case you're wondering. Yeah, and Natasha Kaplinsky was a newsreader for the longest time. Anyway, BBFC in the last couple of decades has really caught up, and it began, I think, with Robin Duvall in 1999, that it's about context over content for the most part.
Which I think is right.
I agree very much. And I think that's the thing with Star Wars. And for some reason, Star Wars got a pass early above everything else, because these always got U's or PGs. And I think the Revenge of the Sith was the first 12A. And Revenge of the Sith, I don't like it, but it has quite a menacing tone. I think it's got the context of it is quite dark. And it's things like killing the kids and whatever. The film I worked on last year, Wolfman, that just come out, is really gory, but it's only a 15. And I looked at that and I was like, yeah, because it's funny and it's goofy. So like the stuff that happens in the context of comedy and
we've spoken about it before as well, like things being adult versus things being mature. And,
yes.
What was it? Like things like Alien 3. Like obviously, like a lot of the horror in that comes from the depressing tone of it. It's not. There is gore in it, but it's often shown in sort of silhouette or in shadow, and it's like it's the depressing tone of it. It's the context, rather than than anything else. That
context over content. I think when the twain meet. I think because the Terminator was 18, the highest possible rating. Well, apart from R18, which is for porn only. 18 is the highest rating, and Terminator was 18, and then it got resubmitted for DVD and it got downgraded to a 15. And it's like, because context versus content in that case is fairly gory in some places, but there's not enough in its content to make it an 18. And you can't give something an 18 purely on context because it's quite dark and it's quite grim, but you can't rate something 18 purely on that basis. I mean, something like Night and Fog, the documentary about the Holocaust, which is very, very graphic, it exists in that space where such things are, I think, exempt from certificate. There's an e-certificate that exempts certain documentary stuff from for educational purposes. So you pursue. And I believe Night and Fog is that. And Night and Fog has like shots of, it's one of those things you watch in film school and they say, hey, if you don't fancy this, don't come to class. Right. They have concentration camp footage after liberation, and there's like baskets full of heads from guillotines and piles of bodies. Jesus. And it's tough going.
And that's almost worse because it's like it's real. Like, real.
So much worse. But those kind of things, that it's educational. And particularly educating people about the Holocaust. It's important,
Which is of course,
And so I don't know what rating Schindler's List is. I think that probably would have been like a 15 rather than an 18.
Yeah.
Because I think it would be important. Yeah, because they were quite relaxed in those days about what they showed you in school. But, we watched it as school kids, and it's kind of important. It was part of our RE. We learned about the Holocaust as part of RE and history. RE being religious education. And it's important, perhaps, to show. I mean, it's a not a fictionalized movie, but fictionalized movie, narrative film.
But see, I can see something like this terrorizing kids, young impressionable kids, a lot more than someone having their head cut off, for example, because it's like the peril of this situation.
What I like about this as well, and this is a perfect example of what makes Star Wars 1 so compelling, is that you never know what's around the corner in the Star Wars universe, right? They're in an artificial planet that looks brand new, and there's a fucking monster in the bin, essentially. It's like, but you kind of like, well, why not? Because it's Star Wars. Like, it's just like when they go inside the asteroid in, the asteroid in Empire Strikes Back, and then there's something living in it. Because you just don't know what's around the corner. Like,
there's that sort of Goonies thing of like, we can dive down this passageway or through this tunnel, and it's like it just could go anywhere. It's that sort of it's real adventurous sort of thing. I agree. I love that about it.
And this is the real swashbuckling Errol Flynn stuff. Like, him taking Leia and swinging on the line is exactly Errol Flynn doing the Adventures of Robin Hood. And so John Williams is referencing the composer Erich Korngold a lot. Erich Korngold was an Austrian composer that did all those kind of few Errol Flynn movies, loads of early Hollywood stuff for the Golden Age, and John Williams, like, hugely. Some people just say ripped it off, but I do think it's kind of knowing references, particularly in the context of Star Wars versus the movies that Erich Korngold composed for. And it really kind of hits in. It's easy to forget that, like, the Imperial March isn't in this anywhere.
Yes, No, I meant to bring that up, and I didn't. Yeah, because it started in Empire, didn't it?
And obviously the Han and Leia theme, because they're love stories, and like the Han and Leia theme and the Imperial March are some of the most memorable pieces of Star Wars music. I did kind of think. So the new movies. I remember the trailer for The Last Jedi, because it's obviously John Williams, bless him. The trailer for The Last Jedi had like a really good kind of theme, but like the First Order theme and stuff, I just didn't find it hugely memorable. It's John Williams, the man's a genius. I'm not mad, but like I didn't find any of that hugely memorable.
No, I know what you mean. I mean, it's one of those things where I don't know what it is, because you kind of go, it's the same composer doing the same thing, and it's like, and the spectacle is greater because of all the things they can do and stuff, and yet maybe it's just that we're so sort of spoiled for all this sort of stuff now that it's just we just expect it.
Just numb to it. It's dreadful, isn't it?
Maybe, but then you watch stuff like this and you go like, no, this looks amazing, and you kind of go, well, you can't be that cynical. I don't know. I just think I think people are smarter than they're given credit for, and I do often think that like the cynical side of filmmaking. I don't know. I mean, big blockbusters as well are made in such a way now where it's like they're not. They're literally just grabbing Lego pieces to stick it together how they think afterwards. It's like all the other stuff's irrelevant. So they need a story that's kind of like, quick, get the key of Andor to plug into the dongle of Fart or whatever. I mean, it's all that sort of shit, and it's kind of like, well, no wonder, but that's because it just gives them so much more. I mean, because it will go to test audiences, and if the test audiences go, can't we see more key of fart box? And I go, okay, well, we've got more of that. So we'll insert a shot from here, and it's all on green screen anyway. I mean, that's what happened with the Justice League film, right? It was like, just characters shot individually on backgrounds that could be put together, or they could be put in different scenes, and it's just like. So cynical. Sorry, my chair's very loud.
Let's squeak a chair. Well, there's this supposed lowest common denominator, right? That exists.
Yeah.
Some movies just treat you like you're a fucking idiot, and it's really insulting. But other ones know not to. You know what I mean? I sort of think. I say what you like about the Marvel movies. It's very easy to go, those suck, and more power to you, whatever. I never feel like, even in a bad one, I don't particularly feel like I'm being taken for stupid. I don't think things are over-explained in those. That might add to them being boring or bland. I'm not saying that either way. But I don't, as big kind of glossy blockbusters go, I don't feel like they think I'm dumb. There are certain films I've watched where, like things like Terminator Genesis was one, and a few others, it's like, you think I'm stupid, and that's massively insulting. You know? Like,
well, especially in that instance because of what came before it. But then I'm sort of seeing more and more evidence now of like, those were those flukes? Like, did you not? Like, how is it that you? like when I see James Cameron, either endorsing or being a part of things like Dark Fate, you go like, was this really what you had in mind? Although he's kind of thrown it all under the bus.
Well, now he's talking about fucking going back again, isn't he? So, Jesus. His other mistake was having Arnold in it, and I pushed for it. Because he's saying Tim Miller didn't want Arnold, and he did. And it's like, I mean, yeah, and that doesn't help that film, but it's not what's wrong with it. No. Leave it alone, Jim. Just go wank it up a big pile of money. This is great. Look, the humour, and they come chasing him back. Yeah, it's great. Little dry.
Didn't they add a load more stormtroopers here? So like when he runs around the...
He goes, there's like a room full of them. There's like the huge garrison's worth. There you go. It is great though, yeah. Like the whole cockiness. It's like, it's a big swashbuckling adventure, and he's kind of a dick that gets in over his head and makes him human, and he's relatable and fun, and he's a bit cocky, but he doesn't know it all. Come on, it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's
This why the warmth and the friendships and the kind of fun, because like this, I think that's something about the prequels. Is like the humor is so bad. It's like Jar Jar stepping in poo or whatever and stuff like that, which really I should love. But
I just don't think, as well, making the Jedi a sort of monastic order of
boring cunts.
Boring cunts, exactly. Or monks, I suppose. It's like, well, They walk around talking in that ridiculous language, and it's like there's no, and there's the jokey jibes of like, like when we went and got drunk and done a bar.
This is worse than the time we fell in the pit of Skenlans. I have no context for that. Okay.
I know. And it probably was just as witless and acerbic as this particular fucking conversation. You utter.
Can you imagine if it was just these two going, this is worse than the time we had to swing over that gap? Right, thanks. Cool story, bro. I don't know what to tell you.
As it turns out.
Yeah, so I guess the grapple hook thing, because he's taken the Stormtrooper's belt. So all Stormtroopers ever grapple, I guess. They just never use them, the dicks.
Good point. Yeah. They get shot before they can use...
It's just mostly like Mars bars and Pepper Armies, the standard issue.
Yeah.
This is the bell end you're looking for.
Oh, that robot had a little... He's got a clear dome, that one.
I was going to say, yeah, he had a...
It's got a rotisserie chicken in it.
I was...
It's a really greasy robot.
You smell him coming a mile away.
They do sort of look like barbecues. It's just a greasy robot. Just pick a sausage out of it. I guess Darth Vader would smush it through the grill in his face. Here we go. Here's the... You've seen, I guess, that thing that those people did to make this all backflips and stuff.
Yes, I did, yeah.
It is very well done, unquestionably. It's very well done. Like, it's a really lovely bit of stuff. It would not work in context, like, at all. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I get it because that's prequelizing things, right? So it has to be all backflips and shit.
Yeah.
But the fact is, this is what they made because it's an old-fashioned sword fight between two old men. Like,
exactly. Having Alec pints of Guinness and cream doing suddenly out of nowhere doing backflips and shit. It's like, great, I get you can do it. I mean, that is one thing. Like the prequels and the latter day sequels. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Do this thing of like. There's an incongruous thing of like sometimes it's backflips and spangly wangliness, and other times it's we're gonna do things retro like because don't that chessboard features in a bunch of them, and it's like they make them all look like stop motion.
Yeah, they do it in Force Awakens again, I think.
Yes, that's right, and it's kind of like, well, great, but everything else is sort of shiny and other things they don't give that treatment to and stuff. And I just think, well, I do think Force Awakens was all right. To be fair to it, excuse me, I didn't think it was terrible, but it is essentially a remake of this.
That's what's annoying about it, I think, is that the first time I was like, oh hey, because that had all the kind of energy and the friendships and the laughs and stuff. and then you watch it. I'll say this again just for posterity, because I think other places I've said it have perhaps been deleted. It came out and we went and watched it, right? And we had a good time. And then about a week later, I think around my birthday, because it came out in December, I think, or the end of the year, I said to my little brother, like, oh, do you want to go see, because he'd seen it too, I was like, should we go see Force Awakens again? Like, it was a night out, do you want to just go check out Force Awakens? He's like, yeah, cool. So we went to see Force Awakens, and as the title crawl started, I went, oh no, but I actually have to watch this again, and I don't want to do that. It was this weird thing of like, oh no, actually, like, I know exactly what happens, and it's long, and I think it's going to bore me, and it did, because I was just like, well, it's just, I remember we saw Force Awakens, I guess, did we see it at midnight the day, and then we went and did like a super late, or did we see it like, we saw it on the first day, basically. The idea was we got our review out really early doors. Yeah. Was the idea.
Yeah.
We got really early. Yeah. And maybe all of us, or I said, like, it's just a remake of Star Wars. And then someone, like, the next day went, well, that's asinine. It's like, how could it be asinine the day it happened? Like, explain that to me. And also, like, fucking look at it. Like, look at it. Like, just watch it, for fuck's sake.
People in their comments. Look, welcome to the internet.
Yeah, sorry.
Like, see, that's amazing. I mean, I'm assuming that's just a map with a.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, they achieve like such a sense of scale in this. Like, here's a bereavement blanket. Like, the sense of scale is,
And from here, it does sort of lose its kind of Flash Gordoniness, actually, because now it turns into a kind of military assault. It's like they have to get away. They have the TIE fighters.
It sort of becomes the Dam Busters now. It becomes this kind of... And it's quite procedural again.
Yes, but I like the sort of double jeopardy of this part, because it's kind of like, oh, they think they've gotten away, but they're not safe yet, because they've got to fight those TIE fighters. And you get that sense of geography with the Millennium Falcon as well, because he has to go up and down the thing. And it's one of those things where everyone just knows what to do.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, if Luke Skywalker went up after him, and he's like, no, get down! Like,
no, you got the other one, for fuck's sake.
Well,
because I joked about it earlier, but Luke talks about, he goes shooting stuff and piloting and jetting around on Tatooine, and also we've been told earlier on that his dad was the greatest star pilot in the galaxy. I sort of feel like that Anakin Skywalker kind of has the John Connor problem, in that it was probably best wondering about Anakin Skywalker rather than actually seeing Anakin Skywalker. There's a bit to think about. Well, because it's when you realise, like, actually it was only ever originally conceived of as a plot device to affect the characters, the hero in the other thing. Yeah. To inform you about the protagonist of the film you're watching, rather than be a thing in its own right. Yeah, precisely. Like Darth Vader, like, because you can look at Luke and Leia in their white outfits, and like, I would normally be like, oh, well, that suggests a kinship to them, hinting to us that they're brother and sister. And it would do if that was true at this point, which it wasn't. Yeah. And I don't care what George Lucas told you, because it's bullshit.
They've obviously adjusted the black levels in this, because like you can see all the stuff around the TIE fighters when they're moving through.
These were movies that
slightly different black.
They very much had those, old blue screen techniques. You should get a big fucking liner and everything. They've tidied all that up, which is what you should be doing if you're remastering stuff. It's like in no, but I mean, there's you can see, can't you? There's like a black square around them. A lot of shots, because it's just a different black. Because it's a different,
It's obviously rotoscoped or something, but it's like there, like you can see.
It's like the moon in the Evil Dead just has like a big black square around it, very obviously, which is quite cute. The thing in Empire Strikes Back, right, was like you could see the AT-AT walkers through the cockpits of the ships. Yeah, because it was on white instead of on black, so they tidied that up, and it's like, yeah, good, they're going to tidy that up.
That's what you should do. Yeah, that's exactly what you should do, is enhance what's there rather than fuck ass around with it and put giant. But then again, when it all makes sense when you realise this was just so that he could change it enough so that his ex-wife wouldn't get any of the proceeds.
Well, one of the things that was discussed, and I remember it was on the VHS making of thing, so you kind of question it a bit, but I don't know, was that Lucas and McCallum say that the original Star Wars 1 negative was so distressed that part of the process was restoring the negative. So there was an archival restoration. Yeah, so they play like it's all washed out and blue and fucked up and scratchy, and they apparently restored the negative in an important way for the purposes of archive and restoration for the 97 version. And like I say, I think it's like the first DVD release was like 2001 or something, or 2005. They changed it again, and then I think there was a Blu-ray release and they changed it again. So I think it's been changed like 3 times. But Lucas, he even tinkers with the prequels. You know, the puppet Yoda is no longer in Episode 1. That's a CGI Yoda.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because I know that the famous thing he did for the Blu-ray was add the no to Darth Vader.
Oh yes, yeah.
Jedi. And which was so sort of like, because we didn't know what he was thinking, right?
And also it's doubling down on one of the worst things from Revenge of the Sith. Right?
Yeah. I know, but it was like, do you think that little of us that we didn't figure out that he's maybe conflicted? But he's literally looking at the Empire and Luke.
Yeah, and it's been his entire story arc. Like, you know, this whole movie. Like, for fuck's sake. Well, it's weird. And, you know, they're in terms of Empire and Jedi, they're movies he didn't direct, but he undeniably has ownership over. You can't take that away from him. They are his story that he stewarded through. And they kind of exist in that weird space of being kind of sort of technically independent movies, in that you know, they were distributed by Fox but they were made by Lucasfilm. And you know, it's the thing you can say about the Star Wars movies, and particularly the prequels, especially the prequels, is you cannot deny that those are the films George Lucas wanted to make. There's no interference, you know. If anything, the problem is they're the films that George Lucas wanted to make. You know, but depending on your opinion, obviously. But
I mean, when you think about what they could have been, I mean, but then I just think by then, I really think by the end of Jedi, they've exhausted it all. There's just no more.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, and you have to pull all this story out your fucking arse, and that's like the sequel films are so desperate to exist, it's insane. They're so desperate to exist. It's like, well, you've got nothing though. Like, you were making up as you went along. Like, come on.
But that's why something like The Mandalorian is a much better. See, the thing is, I have realised I am now, in a way, contradicting myself by saying that I think, you know, by essentially, you're not even taking an ancillary character and you're taking like an assumed culture of the character, of the backstory, of the thing, you know. But you're just stepping out of all this, all the baggage of all this, and you're just talking about something completely different. It's just set against the backdrop of this.
Well, I think what it recognises, because people are kind of like, oh well, the Star Wars universe is full of infinite possibilities, and it's like, it's not. What it is
it's not though.
Is it though? Right.
What it is a good place for archetypes to play.
Yes.
And here's a cool gunslinger in cool armor doing lone wolf and cub in space. It happens to be the Star Wars space, so every now and then there'll be a TIE fighter or a fucking lightsaber, but more or less it's about its own thing. And we know very little about the Mandalorians as a thing, so we'll do that. You know, we don't need more Skywalkers and shit, and it is kind of frustrating when Luke turns up, but we're learning about Mandalorian shit. They seem cool too. You know, that's cool. Yeah. I'm down for that. It's totally separate and it's ploughing its own furrow, and I'm good with that. You know, that's interesting. I'm not bothered about where fucking Han Solo got his stripy trousers, which apparently we have to know about. You know, I've been weirdly compelled to watch that. Yeah, I think they did. I've been weirdly compelled to watch that again in a sort of I'm conducting a post-mortem way. You know what I mean?
I did watch Solo, but it was in really, you know, it felt in passing. It was one of those things I probably watched in sort of 3 chunks. But I swear you can see David Prowse's eyes.
Yeah, you can for sure. Certain shots, the light catches his eyes in.
All right, my lover.
You've heard
all that stuff where you hear,
fuck me.
Yeah, it's and it's like, I didn't know. I was quite disappointed when I found out they dubbed me. It's like, wow, that's a shocking level of.
Adam and Joe predicted that, like, because it got released, right, and blah blah blah. But Adam and
Yeah.
Joe did a sketch about that like fucking 25 years ago, and it was a special deleted scenes from Star Wars, and it's them in the cheapest possible Star Wars costumes, and he's like Vader talking to a stormtrooper. He goes, "Here, stop playing silly buggers and go find those 2 droids. You can use a tractor beam." It's so
And that's
basic.
kind of what it is, though, isn't it? When you,
Because it's like, and the thing is, bless him, he's doing like "You're part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away."
yeah.
I saw some American guy from Lucasfilm, whatever, talk about that, and he's like, "So we reviewed the footage, and it's just some Scottish guy."
Oh, for fuck's
No,
sake.
he's from the west of England. Very obviously, you dunce. But whatever. I saw I think it was James L. Jones talking about coming on to dub this. And he was like, "Yeah, I think he says like something along the lines of like, yeah, I got $3,000. It was like a afternoon. Never thought of it again. And then like 6 months later, I was in the biggest movie in the world. And I didn't even know about it." Like it's amazing. Because they used he's retired. They used voice synthesis for
I heard
the
that, yeah.
Obi-Wan thing, and you can kind of hear it. So it was like Mr. Sunny Movies did a thing about it, and it says, I think it says at the end, because it says starring James Earl Jones, but buried in the credits it's kind of like made in cooperation with Respeecher or something. And
God's sake.
you do hear it goes. It's good, but it's kind of weird sometimes, and it's like it's a little bit like the Luke voice in Mandalorian, because Mark Hamill did perform all that in person and in voice, and then they've de-aged the voice or whatever, and sometimes it's a bit jankoid and a little bit, it's good, it's really good, but
Mark Hamill, as we said, is the man of 1,000 voices, and he's an incredible voice artist. But his current voice is a bit sort of chain-smoking laundry lady.
yeah, because he's like fucking 68 or whatever, like
Yeah. Like he doesn't sound like he used to. Let's put it that way.
yeah, and he's not
But
he's not
amazing.
pretending, but they've done whatever computer jiggery pokery they've done
Yeah,
to make it, but it just sounds a little bit jankoid from time to time. But
I do get a bit worried because there's all this sort of crap about like, oh, they want to replace writers with AI and they want to replace actors with AI and stuff like this, and you go like, whose idea is that though? That's some boardroom twat who thinks he's going to save a few quid. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, it's greedy cunt's idea. It's always greedy cunt's idea. That's why, because take the human out. Instead of making our jobs easier, it's taking our jobs and making us fucking homeless. Like, my fucking, all this kind of AI mid-journey stuff that's coming out now. It's like, oh, well, that's replacing photography and artists. It's like, give it 5 years, they'll be doing that at 25 frames a second and I won't have a job.
no.
Anyway. Watching Star Wars is a good venue to talk about fear of technology. This is all great. All this stuff. I love they do it with the speeder bike as well in certain shots where it's just on like a kind of crane arm and it swings round. And they do things where, they just lift the X-Wing out of shot and you can't see the crane lifting it up, but it looks great. And then they cut to him in the cockpit and they're just kind of jostling the cockpit, so it looks like he's, So it's really kind of simple but effective stuff.
Oh yeah.
Here you go, this is CGI.
CG. Yeah.
This is all stuff that was the Star Wars Trilogies Special Edition. That's what the voice said.
Yeah, true.
Before DVD extras, you had your little featurettes at the start of your VHS.
Well, what always used to make me laugh is that they would advertise DVD on VHS and then they would advertise Blu-ray on DVDs, and it was like 10 times the picture quality, and you get this thing wiping across to make it look, and it's like, well, you've had to make that look shit, because it's on the format that you're trying to make obsolete.
You made it
so
like
I can't tell.
Screenshots from like a Nintendo. Yeah, you're telling me on the thing that looks bad that it looks, but you can't do that. What an idiot do you take
demonstrate.
me for?
Yeah, exactly. You idiot. And it was like the whole kind of like, you wouldn't steal a car. It's like, well, I didn't steal this. You're telling me I'm the one who paid for it, for fuck's sake.
Because weirdly, the pirates won't let you put this on their ones.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. You're not going to get
like, guys, who do you think? How fucking thick do you think we are? Did you remember
You wouldn't steal a car. It's not the same thing. I didn't break into someone's house and steal this.
Do you remember the one, the old anti-piracy advert? It's like, I bought this copy of Trainspotting from you, and the the sound's terrible, and he's like, it's all in Scotch, ain't it? It's the guy going to the market.
Vaguely, yeah.
There's a big Train did a version of that where Simon Pegg goes like, excuse me, I bought this copy of Trainspotting from you last week, and it's cheese. And he opens the box and there's just cheese.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
It's fucking great. It's so good.
Oh, sorry.
So I heard recently that so Dennis Lawson as Wedge, Scottish actor Dennis Lawson.
Yeah. Wedge Antilles.
Wedge Antilles. He's dubbed in this. That's not his voice. What? Like when he returns in the later films, it's him, but it's not his voice. And I believe, and someone in the comments correct, I believe Wedge was played by a different actor completely altogether, and then they recast, but they, for whatever reason, they dubbed him over, and I don't think it's because he was being too Scottish. I mean, he does a perfectly serviceable American accent later. But is he in the Hoth battle in Empire? Is he in Empire? He's in Jedi for sure.
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think maybe he is. Yeah. Although I don't know enough. People's going, no, you're wrong. You're all wrong.
This is the thing. If you want to know about Star Wars, someone's got your back.
That's true.
Someone's always got your back.
Someone will say something. I always struggle to remember what this was actually like pre the special edition stuff, like what the ships looked like and how this was done. Because obviously there's some shots in here that are just the original ones, but I remember it was a bit more kind of clunky, I guess, with like the wings and stuff. What they called S-foils. Why are they called that?
What?
What did they say? Lock S-foils and attack position or whatever.
Oh, I always thought he said lock.
That was the wing.
I always thought he said lock S4s, but.
All right, maybe.
It
may as well be.
For all the two Skanglangs,
that just raises further questions.
Space, isn't it? So what did you say? You say S-foils.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't
S4s,
know. That's kind of thrown me through a loop because I'm like, oh, fuck. Maybe
whatever it is, but it's
it
like,
doesn't matter. It's made up spaceship, I guess. But because they do this, don't they? People can't see, but they start out like this, and then they go like that to attack mode. So when they leave the hangars, they go, but then they go like that. So does it?
They go from I'm
going from flat to. I'm kind of scissoring my arms. People at home,
but they're called X-wings for obvious reasons, right? Why aren't they called? Why do they S-foils?
Or is he saying X-foils or X4s? Maybe. Someone at home knows. It's a Wikipedia away.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Someone's probably really typed 12 paragraphs into a paragraph.
Before we've released it. They're doing it now. They felt disturbance in the Force.
I had that toy. I think I had the Darth Vader TIE Fighter toy, which never comes back, does it? Which is a shame because it's quite a cool.
Yeah, and again,
design.
I from the point of view that he is Anakin Skywalker, but okay. Greatest star pilot in the galaxy, right? Like this.
It's true. But then I like the bombers as well, the different designs for the ships and all that kind of thing. Which is probably, again, that's a bit of retconning because it was probably like these were just used designs that we didn't use for the X-wings or whatever. So, but it's kind of nicely thought out.
I meant to say this earlier. So, one of the big things in Star Wars is obviously the designs by Ralph McQuarrie, right? Like. He designed so much of Star Wars, and so much of his aesthetic is in Star Wars. It's really important. They use future stuff, the kind of clunky stuff, the aberrations of nature. All these versions of Vader and Luke. It's all kind of Ralph McQuarrie stuff. And he died a few years back. But something that's happened is it's one of two things. Like, I mean, he was a really amazing artist, but also. They're sort of like ghoulishly mining all his leftover sketches that didn't get used to make new things in new Star Wars. And it's like, but these are things that you rejected already or didn't use for some reason. And now you're kind of like using them again for stuff because you're just exhuming his grave for blood-stained money, I guess. Okay. That might be a bit much. I apologize. That's Jeff from EastEnders, by the way, on the right. He played Tamsin Outhwaite's dad. Yeah.
Oh.
There you go.
There is that weird thing though where it's kind of like, oh, he's the greatest pilot that ever there were and all this kind of thing, and it's like, well, all he seems to have done is sort of come up behind them and use a targeting system because it just sort of goes dee 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 done, and then he presses a button and they die, and it's like that's not skillful.
Yeah, because
is it?
the difference is no one else has ever seen inside his cockpit. Like, he's just cheating. Oh no, he's amazing. Oh really? Because I think wasn't he supposed to die? You know, he spins off into space. But also, I'm sure it's in a book or something. But basically, he's in like a little short range fighter. He's like basically in a biplane, and he spins away from an exploding planet. He's just kind of stuck in space. He's got this humiliating limp home where someone's going to pick him up. Just he's sat there picking his bum in a disabled TIE fighter, picking his robo bum or whatever.
Yeah, picking the scabs off his burnt ass.
And posting them through the grill in his mask.
You see, Mr. Powers, I am peeling.
You see, Mr.
That's
Powers, I am peeling.
Who's Mr. Powers?
Well, I guess he could reach out to the Emperor, couldn't he? And
Just Skype him. We've learned you can force Skype.
Well, and if-
right?
Yeah, well, you can force Skype, and you can essentially project yourself like Leia.
And
did
actually
in,
ask physical objects as well, as per the fucking sequel movies.
Yeah,
It's kind of like, well, that breaks everything, but okay.
yeah, I know. Well, this is the thing, isn't it? When the Force can do anything, it's meaningless.
I've just remembered this has the line, negative, it didn't go in, and they came from behind.
And it just impacted on the surface.
It just
I'm sure that's
impacted on
sexual.
the service. Gets up for your attack run, you loser.
He looks like, that was a... See, shots like that are really good. And obviously it's just a camera pass over a model.
Yeah, and they're kit bashed to like essentially airfix kits, aren't they? It's loads of just like put on a board, like it's crazy. It's so effective. Just shot and lit and doing kind of passes over it. And again, if we did that now, I'm not saying we've got the model making skill, but if you had that thing, you would just use like a gimbal and a fucking Black Magic or something, and you could do I could do motion control with my fucking gimbal. It's crazy.
Wow.
It's fucking bananas. And it's not like because I'm a genius, it's a feature. You go there, then go there, thanks, time for a wank. Like there's no,
There's that reused shot of the camera kind of going into the trench, and it's like there's a clear sort of like gun blast that obviously hides a cut, I think, because it goes like down, down, and then it's like, and then it goes in, and I think it's kind of like this. You're supposed to, it's hiding. There's two shots there, I think, that it's covering up, but
okay.
It's quite effective because I don't know if it's like it's obviously not a lipstick camera or something, but it's something that there was obviously a trench they could put the camera into. I don't quite know why they have to go in the trench so far back.
Yeah, it's just like turn up at the
just
port,
go
guys.
to the bit where the thing is, and then
I guess because it's moving. It's a nice. It's a good. Dave Prowse's eyes there. Oh my god!
Wow.
Yeah, it's a nice bit of ticking clock. I like it's really good parallel action. It's classic kind of race against time stuff. And yeah, like you say, it kind of being this big soup of stuff. It goes from being the kind of slightly fairy tale-ish Robin Hood movie, and as you say, just turns into the kind of Dan Busters-y war film. It is a store war, as we know. So like we were, or a Star War, if you prefer. Really putting the war in Star War.
Use the Force.
Don't choose your attack computer, you bellend. Use the Force.
That's cheating.
That's cheating, you fuckwad. Why can't I use both? Why don't you shut the fuck up?
I'm dead.
I turned into a cloak because of you, you little prick.
I would know.
So yeah, in that cloak were his dirty undies as well.
That's what they never tell you. It's just like these skiddy monk pants that are made out of the same Hessian and are just massive.
Oh.
He does call him Annie in this. He says Annie was a good friend. This is
Does he?
It's kind of a
Annie, get your gun.
Annie, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay, Annie? Shabab.
You've been struck by.
No.
I do like the Death Star gunners with their crazy pointy helmets. They're really cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's just full of so much striking imagery, I think, isn't it? Like, it's this insanely...
Definitely.
It's weird because we grew up in a post-Star Wars world. This must have been such a smack in the face, everybody.
You've got references as well. Obviously, C-3PO looks like a thing from Metropolis.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there are, and then like the Boba Fett's helmet is very much Roman inspired, and there's lots of I don't know quite why, because also the other thing is it looks like these torpedoes go up and down.
Yes.
It's like, but I thought it was directly in front of him.
Yeah, they should have to sort of go 90 degrees to it. He has to put on his handbrake and just go.
Yeah, well then if that was all that was required, again, why drive all the way down the trench? But anyway,
it's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Let's blow this thing and go home. He's still spinning about. You can still see his eyes. Here, I'm in bloody space. Look, he just flies off. Wait, where are you going?
Dare fuck off. Emperor's gonna have my arse.
He's gonna have my arse. I knew I should have drank all that old rosy before I left the house. He'd definitely smoke roll-ups as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Some fucker flicked a roll-up the other day and it landed on my bonnet while I was driving. I was taking my daughter to nursery and I was driving through a village and it was like, I didn't notice at first, but my car for some reason started smelling like, how old coaches used to smell when people smoked on them?
Oh, so it
like
went somewhere so it was just going through your air conditioning or something?
It turned up, it had landed right on the top of my bonnet. And like the smoke was obviously the air comes in through the like where the windscreen wipers are and stuff like that. So it was just sucking this horrible, dirty smoke smell, and I couldn't do anything about it. Afraid the whole car stank. I was well fucked off. You dirty grot bag. It's like a horrible rolly.
Dirty grot bag.
Like, well, come on! Like you're just like flicking your fag.
Were they just someone on the street? Sorry, or just another?
Must have been. Yeah, must have been. Cunt.
This is another kind of tie gets this trouble. So like Chewie doesn't get a medal, right? It's kind of bullshit. So in fucking that movie, they had to show him getting a medal, and it's like, is that with everything going on here? That was the important housekeeping. Like if all the bollocks, you were dropping bollocks all over the place, making this piece of shit, and that's what you had to deal with. That's what you gave screen time to.
Yeah, it's like that was the priority, was it? Well, that just sort of sums it all up, doesn't it? I know, like, because they don't even put, like you say, they don't put them in the same room together, and they think that's so subversive and clever. Having Luke Skywalker become this sort of cynical, tit sucking, whatever. Like it's just like, why? That's not satisfying to me. And I don't think it was satisfying to most people. And it's like, oh no, it's really clever.
It's really clever character growth. It's like, is it? Like, how? Explain that to me. How's that such stunningly clever character growth? Because it's just like, well, actually, the opposite of what you expected. And it's just like people who constantly use devil's advocate. It's like, it's the most intellectually unnourishing thing, because you're basically saying to me, I haven't listened, but what about the opposite of what you said? And it's just like, well, it doesn't mean anything. You think it's clever, but it's not. It's just saying, I'm just going to do the opposite of what you expected. Like, well done, great. Like, what if Luke's a cunt now? Like, okay, fine.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's just like, but subversion for its own sake is not. It's not clever. And that seems to be what it is. But I hope anyway, we're kind of emerging from we're in a sort of post-deconstructionist world. It's taken a while to get here, but that seems to have been what everyone's wanted to do for the last 20 years. It's like, not actually, it's all no tights, no flights.
Being ashamed of making the thing you're making. And it's like, well, maybe you shouldn't be making it then.
Exactly.
Like, I don't want to be wild here, but perhaps don't make that if you don't want to. We'll be okay with it. It's fine.
Like, make something new, for the love of God.
Well, I think comics did it, and then film and TV caught up with comics, and then we all got bored of it, and it's just like the constant. And I think it's misunderstanding what makes that interesting as well. I think that's the other part of it. I think it's not knowing why that's an interesting thing. Again, like the intellectually empty move of devil's advocate. it's just sort of like doing something for the sake of doing it. And it's like, well, no tights, no flights for Superman. Well, what am I fucking watching then? Like, honestly, like, what if Robin Hood didn't steal from the poor and just worked in an office? Then it'd be about a man that worked in an office and no one would want to watch it. That's what. You know, and then that gets 10 seasons or whatever.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, I know the devil's advocate people are. I mean, the point of playing devil's advocate is so that everyone's considered every angle of something, right? So you don't necessarily say it.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's inherently bankrupt, but it's just people there's a type of person who just
when
does
it's used
it.
in that context.
Yeah,
who says it like, well, to play devil's advocate, I'm saying it's like, I'm sorry, are you advocating that?
Yeah,
or are you simply representing what would be?
And for most
devil's
cases,
advocate doesn't mean the opposite though. It means the sort of. Let's examine the extreme or bad option. Yeah.
But people just do it as what if the opposite of whatever you said. That's how I hear it. And it's just like, well, what if then? How's that useful? Like, it's just so fucking irritating. Really, oh, fuck me. It really boils my piss, that. It's just, people use it.
In the credits, C-3PO and R2-D2 are spelled phonetically.
Yeah, 3PO, and R2-D2. Yeah,
that's weird.
But it's in parentheses as well.
Yes, true.
So it's a Ben and Obi-Wan Kenobi, along with his whole being a fireman thing. It's kind of like, dude, like, change your name to like Ben Griggs. Don't use your surname as well. Like, come on, for fuck's sake.
Well, I guess, yeah, exactly. That's like, I know. It's like saying, hi, my name is Ben Schwarzenegger. No, that's it, I'm someone else. That's not me. It's like, right. Well, it was nice. Do you know what? It was nice to sort of watch that through. I know we didn't have the sound on, but it was quite nice to just sit through that.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've just watched it.
I used to love fucking in my little 14-inch TV, sit in the dark and watch Star Wars like on a weeknight. Good times, fucking loved that. In grotty pan and scan full frame, so I didn't know any better because it was 1997. Yeah. Oh, I got that for fucking Christmas. The year, I guess, because they all come out in 97. I guess the box set would have come out of Christmas 97, I suppose. And I got that for Christmas, that box set. God knows what happened to it.
I can't remember if I had the box set or if I had them. No, I think I did because they were all in cardboard sleeves, weren't they?
Yeah, there was the widescreen one was silver and the full frame one was gold, and it was Vader's face, and they kind of satisfyingly pulled out, and it was like gold foil.
Yeah, that's right. I had the gold one. That's right. Yeah.
Same.
There you go.
Yeah, with the little featurettes, as if you had a DVD, but you didn't have a DVD. Remember the 80s? Here, I'm Justin E. Collins. I like spousal abuse and nostalgia. Remember the 80s? And I can say that legally safely because he was convicted for it because he's a bastard. Anyway.
Was he? Mm-hmm. Fuck's sake.
Yeah. Luckily, he was a twat to start with, so it's not that disappointing.
Kevin Spacey, Justin E. Collins, Bryan Singer. Oh, no, not yet.
Not legally, no.
Not legally.
We can merely speculate. Well, then we just did Star Wars 1 for the first time.
We did the Star Wars, and if I came across as embittered or angry in any way, it's because I was. But also, I'm very tired. But it's, do you know what? It's not to take anything away from that film because I think it's brilliant, and I do think Empire and Jedi just get better and better. It's one of those, like, it just seems to escalate. And it's weird, like, when you think about Empire and you just think, you took that and made that. That's the big shift. Everything else that comes after it, even Jedi, is like not, we're just playing it safe, really. Empire is the one they're all cribbing from. That's what they will owe something to, because it takes itself seriously and does something,
I think it showed what's possible, right? It built on this film in such a big way. It shows what's possible, and it was this big Oscar-winning prestige blockbuster, and it's so lush, and it really feels like, I love everything that go like Empire, like the whole when they flee the Empire and they Han pulls out the bag of tricks, but they're being pursued by Boba Fett, and then they go to class. All of that stuff. It's so sublime. It's really interesting to me that that's the one. Firstly, I find the changes made to Empire to be the least egregious. Because I think there's quite often works quite well. It's putting windows in and stuff in the chassis. Yeah. But also, even Lucas knew not to fuck with that too much.
That's true.
It's like
the sacred cow, isn't it?
It's the best Star Wars film that he didn't direct. Yeah. True.
Yeah, no, it's it's that. I mean, I guess we'll have to do a commentary for that as well, but and so I'll save most of it for that. But it is, to me, especially in the context of when you just watch that and when you think of all the hype that was around Star Wars, and to sort of suggest that that's the direction they were going to go in and tell that story it's really dark. It's very much a second act because obviously of how it ends. I think it kind of it knows what it is, but it has a confidence about it that I think is just brilliant. But there you go. That was the Star Wars. Have you any more clothing?
Clothing remarks. Pants.
Have you
socks.
any? Sorry. Do you have any more clothing, Richard? Or closing even remarks for Star Wars 1?
Yeah. We don't often break out small, obscure indie movies like this. So if you haven't seen it, go find it. It's quite hard to get. You might find an old Betamax somewhere. But we recommend you watch Star Wars 1.
Yes, indeed. Okay, cool. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up there. Thank you, everyone, for listening, if you've made it this far. We will see you again for another one, no doubt, soon. And I can't think of anything else to say, so I'm just going to go away now.
Bye.
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 Bye.